Hi, I'm Heather Noel, and I'm from the GivingGameFoundation.com, and I'm here today with Sue Greenwald, and I'm doing an interview with her about how she became awakened. Okay. Yeah. So I was thinking, Sue, would you like to start off with your childhood and kind of things that happened that people would like to know about? Yeah, let's start there. Okay.
So I grew up in a very small town outside of Syracuse, New York, and we were out in the country. It was a far different time than we have now. All right. So there wasn't technology. We weren't glued to the TV set. We were outside as, kids. We were outside all the time, winter or summer, rain or shine. And I had great parents. So, they didn't like play with us, but they taught us how to do all the things we need to live life. So my mother taught me all the woman things, I can cook, sew, clean, bake, blah, 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 do all that stuff, how to manage a household, if you will.
Right.
My father taught me like the man stuff, how I can, do basic car repair or diagnose my car should I need to. Not that I ever want to, stuff like that. And my father was a small business owner, and he was very intelligent. And a lot of people from the town or my family would often stop by our house to ask business questions. They'd ask advice, they'd ask to borrow money or whatever. And so he, the kitchen was our gathering place back then. And so I would, hover around, not listening, because who wants to listen to that boring stuff? But through that, I learned a lot about business, money, and all those other things. So I had very good, stable parents. My grandparents taught, us how to garden. So basically, I feel that because of that foundation, I'm very independent and self-sufficient. And I find that that's really lacking today. There's a lot of people that don't know the basic things about how to take care of themselves. So I feel very grateful for that really great support that I had. Mm-hmm. Right. One of the questions I often get is religious background. And, I basically had none. Yay. I'm not joking. I'm very grateful that they let us make our own decisions. So when I was in grade school, there was a after school, church school program that I went to as a kid. And I liked going and hearing the stories and the parables. We'd color, we do all that kind of stuff. I liked that. But when I went to, we'll call it official church with generally my grandmother. I knew none of that was correct. I didn't know how I knew, I just knew. So that was kind of a source of anxiety for me. Like, why is it I don't have faith like all these other people? I always doubted and questioned myself that I was wrong for not just blindly following the crowd. And that's just the way I am. I can't follow somebody unless I understand and believe, so I didn't. And so I would try to wiggle out of church or any of those services as often as possible. But like I said, luckily my parents didn't, actively practice anything. So we were free to learn on our own. So yay.
Yay.
Now, the other thing I want to talk about is I was empathic right out of the chute. Okay. So that's it saved me a lot of times, because I could walk into a room and I could feel when the energy was off in the room. There was anger, there was whatever. I picked it up before I even walked in, and I was able to keep myself neutral as a kid so that I didn't get into further trouble or whatever. It saved me many times. Now, again, way back when, we didn't know what that was a thing, right? It was just something I had.
Yeah.
So that saved me a lot. So good foundation. I was empathic, and I was basically free. So my parents, again, different time. We were allowed to roam. We had to come back and eat dinner. We had to come back and go to bed. Of course, we had to go to school and stuff, but I was very free. And the other good thing is my father was a great inspiration. And of course, I didn't realize that until he passed away. Serious. But I was able to read before I went to school. So my father really was a huge inspiration along those lines. I read mostly his books because they were in the house. You know, people didn't buy a lot of stuff way back then like we do now.
Mhm.
So he had books like by Edgar Casey. He had Chariots of the Gods. He had all these unexplained mysteries, you know, like Easter Island Heads and that kind of stuff. So I would sit and read his books. He also had a lot of books on becoming a forest ranger and being able to survive in the wilderness. So that was really fun for me. But then I started going to the,
How old were you when you were reading all these books?
I was like in grade school and then middle school. I read like Lord of the Rings at probably age 12, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Dune and the big fat books.
Yeah.
But I was really interested in the topics by then. And I remember as a kid, I'd say, oh, reading is so hard, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he said something like, listen, your imagination can take you all over. It can take you to the moon. It can take you to the bottom of the ocean. It can take you all over. And, you know, not that he made me read, but I liked it after that. I understood it more.
Yeah.
So I would go to the library every week and load up with books. Now, I would read them all because we didn't have a collection back then, but I think that served me well because I still like to read. And one other thing that my father influenced the family with is science fiction and fantasy. So, you know, back then the TV only went on maybe, you know, Saturday, Sunday nights or whatever. We weren't like glued to the TV or the phone or anything. We didn't have that back then. So
Yeah.
especially if there was a science fiction show on like Star Trek or whatever, the family would flock to the TV like Star Trek's on. Oh, you know, it was a big deal. And that still is my preferred genre, you know, fantasy or science fiction. Like I just love the ideas and the out of the box thinking, you know, that provided. Yeah. So that's kind of my childhood in a summary version.
I love it. I love it. Wow, what a great child. Well, you know what? I had a very similar childhood to yours. Same time, you know, we were outside playing all the time and didn't get to watch TV but a couple days a week. And, you know, so I'm with you. And you know, I noticed that you don't really at the time you don't really think about how amazing that is until you get to where we are and you look back and you go, wow, wouldn't that be wonderful to just be like a free range kid where you can run around and do your thing and play baseball with the neighbor kids. And it's amazing. And what a great, what a great way to grow up.
One other great opportunity I had as a kid is my family owned a summer place on the St. Lawrence River, which is on the top part of New York State between New York and Canada. And we would go there from really April through October. And, you know, especially when my cousins came up, oh my golly, we would run. We would get up, we'd swim, we'd boat, we'd run, you know, and we'll call it basically unsupervised. I was a great swimmer and a boater. So I was free range. And, you know, we came in to eat when we had to, like food wasn't as big of a deal then to me as it is now. But we spent a lot of time outdoors. And I know I've done a few videos where I've talked about the campfires. We'd all be around the campfire at night, looking up at the stars, talking about what's out there. So that was my foundation. It was pretty amazing. And I feel really lucky to have the support I did from my parents and my other family as well.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about being empathic. And so I'm wondering, did you have many dreams as a child or had you had dreams that affect you in any way?
I did have dreams and like the ones I remember now are about flying and stuff like that, you know, visitations and things, but I know of course that was so long ago I don't clearly remember them, but yeah. And one thing when I was it was before age 8 because we lived in a different house then. my brother and I had these like shampoo bottles with little, they were like 8, 10 inches tall, but they had like a little doll head on the cap. It was fun for the bathtub.
Right.
And we each had one, and we put it on the edge of a tile on the floor, the kitchen floor. And we made the doll move with our minds. I don't know if he remembers this. And so we would make the doll walk, like slide along the tile. And then we'd put it back and do it again. And so I was maybe 6, 7, 8 years old. And my brother's younger. I don't know if he remembers this or not, but I'm pretty sure there were things that were out of the normal that I don't remember at this point.
Yeah.
One of the blogs I did probably already write about was at the summer place at the my bedroom was near the neighbor's hedge. They had giant hedges around their property, huge. And at night I'd go to bed and I would hear music and laughing come from the hedges. And I'd say like, yeah, I'd say, Mom, those, that party in the hedge is keeping me up. And they were like, what? So those were like the fairies or whatever in the hedges, like I heard them. So that's one thing that I do remember.
How long did that take place for you? At what do you know what point it kind of cut off? Or because I know with kids, like when you talk about being 7 or 8, that makes so much sense what you were able to do with your brother, because at that age, unless you've been really programmed otherwise, your mind is open enough to do things like that. No problem, right? Did you find yourself would you leave your body? Did you ever have that happen where you could like astral travel? Did you do that as a child?
I actually don't remember, to be totally honest with you.
Okay.
And I'm going to think about that in the meantime, but I don't, let's just say I don't remember it if I did.
Okay.
But,
okay.
One of the things I did write about before is my first memory as a little kid was a near-death experience.
Oh, interesting.
I think I wrote this blog. I don't remember actually so much is going on, but I was, between 2 and 3, and I was on the edge of a cement porch with an old iron railing, and I flipped over and hit the corner of my head on the railing. And next thing I know, I popped way up into the clouds, and I was looking down at the earth, and I hovered there for a little bit, and then I got sucked back into my body like super, super quick. And I don't really remember any further details from there, but it's a weird thing to remember, right? And then all my life, I've had this giant scar on my head, and it would be like thick and ugly, and my skull was misshapen. But if you feel it now, like there's a little scar there, but it's round and smooth, like a normal skull. Is that bizarre?
Yeah. So when did that change? When did your skull begin to change?
Within probably the last 10 to 15 years. Like I didn't notice it. Okay. It wasn't like boom.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden I'm like, hey, it's smooth, and I'm going to say probably 10 to 15 years. It's changed. Yeah.
Well, okay. So when you shot out of your body for that moment, did you have any sense of, did you still feel like you were like some 2-year-old, or did you have any kind of a sense of things that was a little more like, like before you're born, I don't know if you think like this or not, but I believe that before we're born, we're very, very conscious of what we're doing and coming here. And I'm just wondering, did you have any shift in your consciousness when you shot out of your body, or did you just kind of go, oh, well, there I am, and now I'm going back?
Well, I remember hovering, and I don't know that I was thinking that much, but I was like, I noticed how beautiful it was. And then I shot right back down. And shift in consciousness, let's just say probably no, because I don't remember it, honestly.
Okay. So more of an observation of things in a way that you've never seen it. And did you talk about that at all with anybody?
Well, again, I was just little, so probably not. I don't remember, that. But that was my first memory. I got hurt a lot as a kid. But that was the only time I flew up to the sky. you know.
Wow. That's great that you can remember that so clearly.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was kind of a good experience. And even as a little kid, before my brother came along, you know, my parents always loved to make, you know, jokes and stories about this, but I was independent way back then. So we had a dog. I would put my stuff in a wagon and go walking around town with the dog.
Love
And
that.
of course, they didn't love that. You know, they want to make sure I'm safe. And the dog kept me safe. And so they always talked about how I was running away. And I don't think I was actually running away. I think I was just exploring a little bit, you know,
Mhm.
and I felt pretty safe and I just wanted to see what was happening, you know.
Right.
But my parents moved around a lot. My dad worked for Martin Marietta way back then. It was now Lockheed Martin. And so we moved around like something like 30 times before I was 5. All right.
Wow.
So I would just like get the wagon and go messing around with the dog. And then at one house, they put a fence up so I couldn't do that any further. I was probably about 3 at that point. So they loved telling the story about how I went around the fence and then started jumping up and down in frustration. But I think I just wanted to explore. I don't think I was leaving, you know?
Yeah. Or at
Yeah.
least you come home for dinner or lunch, right?
Yeah.
So
It's always about the food.
that's great.
Yeah.
So going forward in your life, what is it that caused you to um, start to have a different perception of your life?
All right. So as I said, I read a lot and that was helpful. And I like people, so I like to watch other people's lives. And so initially, I had my own business and blah, 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 went to college and all that. I would listen to or read self-help and self-development types of books. Okay. So, you know, that was a big thing like way back then. So I read them all. And then I started in the spiritual new age department of the library or bookstore. They would have books on near-death experience, past lives. Well, I read every single one of them. I mean, I just ate that stuff right up, right? And so,
How old were you when you discovered that?
well, when that really started coming out, I was probably in my later 20s, you
Mhm.
know, like, you know, that stuff wasn't really available back then, you know?
Right.
And like I said, I read the Edgar Casey books and way back when, and some of the books my dad had, but there wasn't really a lot out there at that point.
Yep.
So I was in my, you know, later 20s probably, and I started, you know, just grabbing every book I could on that topic. All right. And then I'd say 2000 was a really big year for me. All right. So 1999 to 2000, I wrote down some bullet points so I would remember, but 4 major things happened in 2000. So along all these times, you know, I'm living life as a, you know, regular person. I would read and try to get as much information. I taught fitness, so I was super fit at that time. And I worked in sales. So I was in corporate sales for a while, and then I became a commercial realtor for a while before I opened my own yoga studio. But I read all sorts of books, like I said, on every topic. So the 4 things that happened to me in 2000, the first thing is I learned yoga. All right. And that was a life changer for me. I have to look at my note because you know, it's been like a couple of days since I wrote this down, and you know how it gets.
Sure.
The second thing is I discovered Abraham Hicks. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Oh, I'm familiar.
Yeah, and I became an Abraham junkie. And then I also discovered the third thing is Drunvalo Melchizedek. His book had just come out, and to me that was like a really big eye opener. And the last thing is I learned energy healing. I learned more about, you know, back then it was Reiki pretty much only.
Mhm.
So, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about like why these are important to me, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. Um, so for yoga, you know, most people here in the US think of yoga as just the physical fitness aspect of it.
Mhm.
For me, that's how it started because I was I was a fitness maniac. So I learned yoga, and I was like, if you weren't beating your head against the wall, sweating, dying, it wasn't a workout, right? So when I first learned yoga, it was like, what? This is horrible. And it took me about 4 classes till I felt this feeling. And it took me about, and I'm not lying, about 2 days to figure it out. It was the feeling of relaxation. Okay, because I'm a kind of a type A. And I've really mellowed out a lot lately in a good way. So yay. But I once I got that feeling, I wanted it again. So I rented, borrowed every book, DVD, magazine on yoga that I could. So I lived in a small town at that point. I had kids. I taught fitness. I became that town's yoga teacher. So I taught at the Y, the library, I had classes everywhere. I had them in my basement, which was actually nice. It's not nasty. But I became the yoga teacher for that, small town. And eventually that led to eating healthier. So I became a nutritional counselor. It led me to learning to meditate. And I think that's really important, not from the sitting there for hours, not moving standpoint, but it's discipline. And it's really also tuning into your own self. And, you're able to connect to spirit more easily when you're quiet. So I learned to meditate. And eventually I opened my own yoga studio. But those practices led to a great amount of discipline, calmness, and a greater expansion of awareness for me. All right. So that was a major thing. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about energy healing. So I then proceeded to learn, Usui Reiki, Shambhala Reiki. I learned pranic healing. I learned Arcturian healing. I learned all these healing methods, and I could blast energy like the best of them. And I knew inherently that, I knew the energy and the flow of energy is so important. So, of course, you learn a little bit about chakras with yoga, but again, here in the US, they don't really talk about that as much as the physical poses, right?
Right.
So, I learned about, chakras and all sorts of things related to it. And that was just a big expansion. And then Abraham Hicks, I was talking about that. I probably saw them in person 12 times, and I got their monthly CDs or their weekly CDs, whatever. And I read their books, and it was just so influential, like that there are beings out there. So Abraham is a collection of non-physical beings. So the story is, at the time, I just went into commercial real estate, and I was in the car going out to do something. I had just started, and my business partner came out with 3 cassette tapes with no labels on them, because heaven forbid you label anything anymore, right? And she says, you're going to love these. So I popped one in. It was Abraham's intro video. I started crying, and I got covered in goosebumps, and I'm driving around like, I don't know what's wrong with me. But I knew that this was it for me. It was like I said, when I was a kid, some of my cousins were Catholic, and I always felt like I was wrong for not believing what they did. Okay. And I never understood, why don't I believe? I never understood that. Why don't I have that kind of faith? Well, you go about your business. But when I heard that cassette, it was big. It really, I don't know what it was, but that's when I started learning more about channeling, non-physical. And again, at that time when they said non-physical, I thought they meant just humans, like from Earth. But then it took me a while to realize, oh, they could be talking about non-physical from other planets or other areas. So that was like another level of expansion there. All right. And then energy healing was great. And then I did a little quick video before about Greenwald and Melchizedek. So it's unusual, but by chance, I had bought his book, the first book, Ancient Secrets of the Flower of Life, Volume 1, and read that. And that was huge for me. But somebody also gave me a copy of the very same book, which was a little bizarre, but that's great. And then I had sold a property to a woman who opened a place called the Consciousness Institute. She's no longer in business that I'm aware of, but she set up meditations every day using the Greenwald method. Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't know this. I just went and I just, learned the procedure and blah, blah, blah. So I did those daily meditations physically at her center every day for like about 2 years. And then she'd have special events or whatever. I'd go to them. And it's just interesting how it all kind of tied in together, coincidentally.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So at what point did you have like some kind of an experience? So everything you're talking about thus far, are things you've read, things you're listening to, but did you have anything happen to you that was kind of a real jolt in your life that just caused you to really shift? Or did you have anything happen that was a big, you know what I mean? Like a huge wake up call, like you're waking up, but was there anything that happened that caused you to go, like either before or after, that caused you to go, wait, I've got to find out something else? Or was it just that you're always interested in everything?
Yeah. It was no specific event that I can remember, but it was like, I'm curious by nature in things that I'm interested in. Like, I don't care about sports, for example, or some things, like who cares? But what I'm interested in, I will go like kind of almost obsessive, trying to get more info, asking questions, thinking about it. Like even now, I'll watch a movie and I'll kind of replay it in my mind and say, oh, what would I have done? How could I have done it better? What can they do for their sequel? I like to think along those lines, like more expansive. So even though I'm living we'll call it a mainstream life, I was always curious in more information. And like I said, way back when it wasn't available, and around 2000, that's when I was coincidentally, if you will, getting this new information, right? It was just the way the ball bounced.
Well, and I almost think there's like some astrological stuff going on there, because that's right the same time that I started having all this like things coming in. A lot of things happened. But okay, so you ended up having a show or an expo. Yeah. So what happened between normal life and then doing expos? Did you do it all at the same time, or did you just do the expo thing, or what? How did that happen?
Okay, so 2000 was a big year, and I went I'm going to use the word obsessive. That's not a great word, but I go like full tilt, learning about yoga, meditation, energy, everything. Like I am like crazy, learning as much as I can around the cracks of working full time, having kids, the house, teaching fitness, blah, 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 all that stuff. So I'm busy, but I'm loving it, right? So in 2000, I became a commercial realtor for about 10 years. And so I had flexibility in my schedule. I worked like from, let's say 9 to 5 or whatever. I didn't work nights or weekends. I tried to spend time with the family. But, again, I did things. I would get up at 5 a.m. I'd go do a workout. I'd do this. I made time for those little projects and things that I loved, So I worked there, and then I went to work for a builder, and I was an employee at that time. And although I did a great job, the economy had kind of tanked a little bit around that time. I was let go. I was laid off, which was at the time I thought horrible. Okay. I was so offended, but I taught yoga to everybody. Like I probably taught like 12 classes a week. All right. So that's when I went to open my yoga studio. So I had my first studio was smaller. So of course we're doing yoga, we're doing meditation, but we started doing specialty events. So I would bring in cool speakers, authors, we do sound baths, gong healings, kirtan, all sorts of great stuff. And that started out small. And then I would add what I called field trips. So those were like day trips to different cool places. And, I'd gather my group and we go off and we do whatever. Oh my God, it was so fun. So fun. And then I started doing retreats on top of that. So that was little harder. I learned a lot of things the hard way, but it was also so fun. Great groups of people doing spiritual stuff, healing the earth, getting to travel, doing all of that. So I had that studio, and then I needed a bigger place. So then it was almost 4,000 square foot studio in a different location. And it was gorgeous. I made that place so beautiful. So I had a big practice room. I had a classroom, a meditation room, and 4 like treatment rooms for Reiki or massage or whatever. So we had people coming and going. We could have really big events, right? So I expanded out a little bit more, and I'd bring in people from, different states or whatever to do presentations, to do classes or whatever. And so I had a pretty good regional contact list, if you will, of these presenters. So I'm happy, and I'm planning to expand the yoga studio to a series of regional centers. Like here's what I'm finding is most yoga studios are what? Yoga, right? It's all about yoga. That's it. They're not doing these other specialty events. Maybe they'll have a meditation here and there or a gong bath or whatever, but like I wanted to do tons of that. So I thought I would expand to regional centers. But what happened is it was 2015. And again, I'm way more aware by 2015 than I was in 2010. Like I was teaching the classes, on everything, So 2015 hits, I'm bebopping around and I get this big inspiration, like a brick on the head, start an expo. I'm like, what? Hell no. I didn't go to like malls very easily or expos because usually the energy is not like high and light. Okay. It's kind of being empathic. If like I've actually walked out of malls before. I've turned around and I can't be in here. Oh. So there was a holistic expo in that area, and I was going to go spend a day there once, and I walked in and I'm like, I got to leave. So that was my impression of what an expo was, right?
Right.
So I was like, oh, I can't do an expo. That's crazy. So I go about my business and it keeps coming to me. It gets stronger. It gets bigger. The inspiration, the idea, the command, whatever you want to call it, was so compelling, just like it was when I started the yoga studio. But this time I didn't really want to do it. I'll be honest. So I wrote down a list of stuff I would have to do. I had a vision in my mind, trying to figure out a name. And I picked up the phone to call to look at centers and things. And it's very expensive to run a huge center. Oh yeah. So I tried to work the budget and, I did all that stuff. And I'm like, no, can't do it. Boom, start an expo. So a friend of mine, who's a good friend, said, well, so-and-so is selling her little expo. Maybe you could buy that. And that's a quick way to start it. So I started talking with
Hold on 1 second. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
so you say your friend is selling an expo, but I thought when you said you did an expo, I thought you would just go to some place where they did expos and you did your expo, but you actually bought a place?
No.
Okay. Help me understand.
So basically this woman was going to sell me her contact list, like her vendor list.
Oh, her contact list. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
She was gonna, but she never did. So I was, I knew a lot of people already on the list. Okay. I'm already doing it at my studio. So I met with her several times and she decided she didn't want to sell it anyways. And I'm like, good, because I don't need to buy it. I'm going to do it myself. So, all right, when it's time to, when I finally said, okay, I picked up the phone and I said, let's do it. Let's make it happen. I chose the expo center. They sent me the contract, and, you know, I'm telling you, I was in fear. This is
I would have been in fear. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
it's a big dollar figure. And I took the date they had. I said, okay, I signed the contract. And I created probably a newsletter to gather the vendors, and I had to do, you know, everything from scratch. I started everything myself from scratch, along with all the stuff I did at the studio. So, you know, the studio was quite a bit of work, you know, like, you know, I had 20 something classes a week, just yoga alone. I taught some, but I had other teachers. So I had to market and manage all of that. So add in an expo to that. Okay. Which is, I did both for about 2 years. All
So
right.
your
So
kids were grown up by now though, right? Were they out of the house?
no, my, my son, I'm going to say he was 12 or 13.
Oh my
My daughter,
gosh.
yeah, my daughter was a little older. So, yeah, but you know, they were used to my, you know, they had been, my daughter was like my right-hand man with the studio. Like she would come, and she's extremely psychic, like your daughter is. She would come and teach things. She would do events. She was amazing. So she was my helper for the expo. My son also helped, but he's not really in the club. He's like, yeah, whatever.
I was going to say at 12, 13 for a boy, they're
Yeah,
like, just leave me
yeah,
alone. I
yeah,
want to live my life.
yeah. And he and his high school friends, when he was older, ran the ticket desk for one year, and they're just doing it as a favor for me. They're good, trustworthy kids, but they didn't care about any of the content, you know. So I started the expo from scratch. Very scary. And I think it was pretty successful. All right. So I had 130 vendors and
That's very successful,
yeah, 50
I
something
think.
speakers. So I had 4 rooms with talks and lectures and workshops all weekend long. And I'm doing it myself. I had volunteers help me. They're fabulous people, but I still needed more people, you know, so I'm running around like crazy. And after about 2 years, I finally let the studio go. It was like, I can't do both. And the studio is more constant stress, where the expo is seasonal stress, you know. so so that's what I started doing full time, and just planning expos. And again, planning to expand and grow. All right. So along comes 2017. And I had some famous people as speakers at the expo, and famous in their genre. So it was a holistic expo. So only spiritual, holistic, natural products were allowed. In other words, if you had a chemical like a Mary Kay makeup, you
Yeah.
weren't allowed in. Or a lot of them will take in these window refitters or bath refitters. Yeah, nobody cares about that here.
Right.
So I would screen the vendors, and of course the speakers, and you know, it was pretty successful. Every time I did it, I learned more and more and more and more. So got great contacts, finally attracted some famous people. And I was in I didn't often get to see the presentations because I was working and half crazed, but I was in one of the presentations when I met Smarty. So Smarty stood up and asked a question, and I was in the row, like next to him or across. And I just was like, I want to talk to him. Then I get called out of the room to do something stupid. So I never caught up with him during the expo, but he called me a few days later. And that's how I met Smarty.
Well,
So,
okay, so hold on.
yeah, yep,
Just in case somebody watching this doesn't know who Smarty is,
right.
would you like to tell people a little bit about Smarty and why you were so drawn to talk to him?
Yes, good question. So all right, so the focus of the expo was always truth, disclosure, healthy lifestyle, healthy practices. So like I said, no chemical products allowed, right? And I wanted to get a lot of like nutritional speakers and all that, but I'm really interested in truth and disclosure as well. And I always in the back of my mind. All right. So there's one other story I got to tell you too.
Okay.
I always wondered, like, what the heck am I doing with an expo? Like, why am I supposed to be doing this? I never really understood it, but I kept saying, it's because it's supposed to ripple out, like the information gets out to this crowd and their families and blah, blah, blah. It's going to grow. We're going to do videos, which is a valid reason, right? That's a pretty good reason. But as time has progressed, I know it was specifically to meet Smarty. All right. And to get that experience as well.
So was he a vendor at this time, or was he a speaker?
He was a guest. He was a guest. All right. So let me tell that little story before I proceed. So the very first expo, I was at the ticket desk and people were coming up and saying stuff about, oh, you were at a different venue this time or blah, blah, blah. Well, there was another holistic expo. Remember the one I said that I had walked out of? Like the energy was bad. There was another expo and they discontinued theirs like by magic. I didn't know any of this. And I coincidentally, by magic, by coincidence, and I'm joking because, you know, that's right. There is none. Right. I took their time spot, their normal time, their normal weekend when they would have their expo. I took that. I didn't even know.
Oh, how perfect.
Yeah. So people were coming in thinking it was the same expo. And it wasn't. Of course, it was mine from scratch. So I was like, wow, I think that's a good thing that they're coming, even though they didn't know it was the Empowered Light Holistic Expo, they're coming to it. We're, you know, it's getting out there. So that's good, right?
Right.
And I just thought that was a very big synchronicity. All right. And so there's a reason, right? And I knew there was a reason. So, okay, fast forward again to 2017. I meet Smarty. Now
you said he was a guest. Do you mean he was a guest speaker or just a guest at the event?
He was like a customer, if you will. He paid an admission and he walked in and wanted to see this presentation. Now, again, I'm always
you zoom into him. If he's just a guest in the room, how did you go, woo, I got to meet this person? How did that happen?
Well, a couple things. He did stand up in the back of the room and ask a question. And that's how he really got my attention initially. Okay. Because you got to put me in the right context. I'm half crazed. Okay.
Right.
I've got thousands of people on me asking questions, complaining, needing my help. I'm running around. I'm tired. So I'm not, you know, like really like my normal state. Okay. But when he stood up to ask the question, I noticed him immediately. And then what he said got my attention in that he could create frequencies like that. And I'm like, ooh. Okay. But so I meant to contact him and get his website, but I got called out of the room. All right. So thank God he called me back. All right. So when he called me, now I'm going to give his website. It's smartiescorner.com. And I'll put that in the description, but
let me throw in one quick thing for people who are listening.
Yeah.
It's Smarties with a Y. Smarties. Y-S.
Right.
Yeah. Smarties
so,
Corner.
And I'm just going to say, so how did Smarty get my attention? Well, he wasn't your typical expo goer. Okay. He's dressed. Yeah. Okay. So he wasn't like your typical, like, you know, middle-aged suburbanite. Okay. From his appearance. But what he had to say is what grabbed me. So when he called me, I'm in my office and I'm doing expo stuff and wrapping up and recovering. And he said, are you energy sensitive? And I said, yes. So he sent me a hollow and I felt the hollow immediately through my phone.
So a hollow is a hologram, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I felt the energy from that. I have them all over. And of course I don't have one handy. I mean, I do. But anyway, he really got my attention. And he lived maybe 45 minutes from where I did. I said, can I come out and meet you and talk, you know? So I went out there several times to meet him, ask questions. I loved hanging out with him. Loved. He's fun. He's unusual. We're on the same page. And So I said to him, you need to be a speaker at the next expo. All right. So I was trying to like get him to where he could publicly speak and tell a story. Like he told me a story and I believe him, but he's got to tell an audience. So the next expo he did, you know, a smaller room. I think there were 50 or 60 people in it. And I wish I had put him in a bigger room at this point, but it is what it is. I was trying to like give him the experience of presenting. Okay. And then the next time he was in a room that fit like 100 people, that room was jammed. And by the second time he spoke, he had a PowerPoint. His things were in a beautiful case. He had a vendor booth. And, you know, like, so I'm, you know, kind of like, I want him to become successful, you know, and his products and things. So of course, he did gift me a charm way back when, and some other things that I still have. And then
And
a
so
lot
this
of
is a charm,
yeah, these
which
are a
we
charm.
might call a pendant, but yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And there's different designs and colors and sizes and all of that, which you'll see on his website. But these charms have billions of healing and protective frequencies. So I have worn a charm since 2017.
Mhm.
Okay. And of course I've changed them through the years and I have extras, but I wear them like 23/7. I don't wear them during yoga because they're heavy and they'll knock your teeth out. I'm joking, but I don't want to bash myself in the face. But
Right.
yeah, so that's I think why I was guided to start the expo.
Well,
And
I have to throw in something about the charm you're wearing.
okay.
So I have these small, he has two different sizes, one for women and children, one for men. And
Yeah.
I had the girly ones and they were little. And I thought, oh, I like these really little ones. And I actually wear two of them. But I saw you wearing one of these big ones. I was like, I must have that.
Yeah.
And I've been wearing the big charm ever since I met you.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yay. Well, you know, I my goal is not to be sitting in my apartment. It's to get out and about. And I'm a people person. I like talking. I like to be out in nature as much as I'm able to. I literally will get a minimum of one compliment a day on my charm. One. So I would carry around the business cards he would give us and hand them out. Well, here's how you can get your own or whatever. Now his website has changed, so I don't have a current business card, but I will text them the website or whatever. So hopefully they can get their own.
Yeah.
But literally minimum one per day compliment, sometimes more.
Nice.
Yeah. Is that cool?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, we go back to the expo. Smarty's a speaker. Vendors, you know, he's a vendor. People love him. He's got a very generous and open heart, and he's funny, like he's a ball buster. And, you know, people aren't expecting him to be so loving, but they flock to him. You should see it. It's crazy. And I started out by putting him in the back row, and we were trying to work together to clear the energetic field of the expo. And then finally he said to me, I should go in the front. I'm like, agreed. You need to be in the front when they first walk in and clear the field of that room, you know, and the whole center, because we had so many, we'll call it nefarious energies trying to block the success of the expo. All right. For various reasons. We had so much stuff going on there, people walking around, things hovering around, you know, they did not want success for me or the expo. All right. So, all right, fast forward in, I think it was 2019, I get an inspiration, move to Sedona. Oh, that's a hard one. Oh, darn. But it took me a while to find a place to live. And I was looking to either buy or rent a place, but here I am. I found a rental, and I'm really glad I did because I might have bought in the wrong place. So I literally gave all my stuff away. I see you have a cat, little friend there. Yeah. When I rented this place, I filled my car with books, crystals, and some clothes and my dishes, and literally drove across the country, ditched my stuff, flew back over, gave everything away. You know, just like within 2 weeks, I had that place emptied out. And then I flew back with my cat, and here I am. So I'm living pretty minimally, but I'm really grateful I don't have a lot of stuff to handle anymore, you know.
Do you miss doing expos?
Oh, well, I was still doing expos.
So you went to Sedona back to do the expo? Oh, got it.
So because with what I can do, I can do an expo or an event from anywhere. All right. So I moved here, still working, but I'd work all morning, then I'd go out and hike in the afternoon, and I was happy and I was meeting people. And then for 2020, I had my 2 expos back in Pennsylvania, and I had 4 events here in Sedona. And then I had, prior to moving here, I had scheduled an event in Orlando, which was fabulous. It was the best thing I've ever done. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do these once a quarter in selected areas. So that's what my plan was. 2019, I can see what's happening. 2020 hits, we're locked down, everything's canceled, and lost a buttload of money and time. But I started rolling things forward for a while, and that became stressful because then I had to manage who could do what event and their schedule and whatever. And I thought the pandemic would be over in a couple of months. Okay. So I finally ended up taking the website down, and I refunded everyone their money. And I'm like, there are no plans for future events until there are. Okay. I'm not inspired anymore. It doesn't make sense to make something happen when it's not going to be successful. We still have controversy. I'm not going to go and argue with people about what the rules are going to be. All right. Unless they're free to come and go the way it should be, I'm not doing it. So
right. Well, and I think you made a really good point that you started it through inspiration, and that when the inspiration is no longer there, it's a very good indication that you're kind of going in a direction that you're not meant to go. But the funny thing is that things can open up that may not be exactly the same, but your talents come together and it gets channeled in another direction, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm just saying.
It's exactly right. So I still want to do expos and all that, and in the events. I love doing it. But unless I can gather and be free and have the right number of people come, it doesn't even make sense to try. All right. So I know Pennsylvania just lifted their mask mandate like about a month ago, and then they're trying to put it back on. I'm not going into that, It's not going to be a successful event. Right. So what I did is.
But maybe Florida would work for you.
Well, I have some friends down there now. So, 2020 was a tough year. So my parents died. I saw the pandemic rolling forward. My event got canceled. I lost, all my money, blah, blah, blah. Lot of, like, it felt heavy. It felt like, my kids were all on the East Coast, and I was alone. So I did everything alone still, It felt very heavy with I'm not sure what's going to happen in the future with the expos and all of that. And so I decided to cancel everything. And so then I did write a book in 2020. And that was really fun because that gave me like purpose. It gave me something to do, right? I'm a severe type A. So I'm calling it now that I'm on pandemic vacation. Okay. So I went from going 1,000 miles an hour to like 0. You can't do that. All right. So, I kept myself busy. I hiked a lot. I did things, but I wrote a book. So that kept me busy. I read a book a day. I was just keeping busy. And actually, I tried to use the time as wisely as I could. And then in 2021, last year, my daughter kind of told me, you've got to write down all your experiences, because I used to joke, I've had more crazy things happen in my life than most of you guys put together, angelic experiences or UFOs or whatever it might be. So I started writing down like kind of a bullet point list of these things, but kind of like not with enthusiasm. And honestly, I didn't really know where it was going. I just kind of wrote it to get it out of my head. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure where this is going. And then I think it was January, February of this year. Boom. All right. So I'm inspired again. And again, not knowing where it's going, I started a website called awakenstories.com. And I have a YouTube channel, which this is going to go on, but they're mostly blogs about my experiences, or I'd like to pull in other people's great experiences because people love the stories. They love hearing what other people have gone through in their background. And it's a good way for them to learn. But people have come up to me and said, oh, that happened to me last week. And I thought I was going crazy or whatever. You wouldn't believe the number of great positive comments I'm getting. So I've written down about 200 of my stories on this website. Now, right now, there's probably only 50 or 60 blogs out there, mostly because I need the time to put them over there. And I'm starting to do these blog interviews, and I am loving it, loving doing it. So it's given me purpose again. It's given me a way to share what I've gone through or what other people have gone through in a fun way. They're all easy and short. There's no agenda, okay, other than hope you get something out of it, right?
Nice.
And I'm loving it. So I'm doing that until future notice.
Well, now that you've brought up angels and UFOs, I think that would be a really fun thing to talk about. Do you want to talk about some of your angelic experiences?
Well, how much time do you have? Because I have lots of stories, but so I have also shared some of these in other videos, but the big
What's your
angel-
favorite? Tell us your favorite. That'll get people to go listen to others.
Well, okay, let's start in the first like really big one that I had. I knew it was angelic was I was in corporate sales. I might have been a realtor at the time. So it was before 2000. It was in the 90s. Okay. I was driving a minivan. Yeehaw. And it had a little table next to the seat, and I keep my day timer on it. And at the stoplight, I might write, call Mrs. Jones or whatever on the day timer. I could do it without looking at the paper. And in this particular case, I was going to take a left, and I had my pen on the steering wheel. It was firmly in my hand. And the light turned green, and the pen was ripped out of my hand and thrown on the floor under my foot. I mean, it was ripped. It wasn't like, oh, I dropped it. Okay. Yeah. I knew at the time it was ripped. And I kind of was bending down carefully to kind of scooch it away from the gas pedal when a tractor trailer goes hammering through a red light, exactly where I'd be. Hammering. Wow. And he was probably going 80, and it was probably a 40 or a 50, right? I would have been right there. So I knew, I got goosebumps, and I knew right then I was saved. And I said, thank you right then and there. Okay, so that was a really big, significant event.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, I did tell that story in another video, but
because there's going to be people watching this that have your stories. So well, okay. So so now that you're in Sedona, what kind of UFO stories do you have?
Oh golly, literally, when people are like, "Oh, I think I saw a UFO," I'm like, "Big deal! I can walk out to the end of my driveway any night and show you there, right?" And I'm not lying. They're all over. They're all over.
When's okay, tell me your first experience, your first conscious experience. Because this is what I found. When I had my first experience, I never noticed UFOs before, but once I had that first experience, I see them everywhere. Like, oh, they're, like you said, like boom, 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 right? Yeah. And most people don't realize, but once you become sensitized to them, however that happens, you just see them everywhere. So do you remember what happened the first time that you had a real strong experience?
I don't know if this was actually the first time, but I have told this story before. My family had the summer place, and we always sat around the campfire at night. And I was sitting next to my mom, who was definitely a non-believer. All right. Mm-hmm. So I felt a presence coming in over my head my back was kind of to the river a little bit. I felt it. And we looked up, and black, it enveloped the sky, and it was moving slow and low, and it covered up the entire sky. All the stars were blotted out, and it went by real slow and low. And then it went by, went out of our horizon, if you will.
And did everybody see it?
Yeah. The whole campfire, I'm getting chills now. The whole campfire got quiet, right? And we all sit there for a while. It goes away, stars come back. And I just turned to my mom and I said, did you see that? She goes, yep.
Oh,
that's all
that's
ever said.
Wow.
My mother did not like talking about, aliens, or she didn't like all this stuff. So she was like
all that stuff that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, exactly. It made her very uncomfortable. Like my brother, father, and I would talk about it nonstop and all sorts of stuff like that. She would just be like, oh, please stop, but she was sitting there with me.
But isn't that funny when people normally go, please stop, because they don't believe it. They've never seen it. But to have someone who's seen it go, yes, I saw it. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. And one time, a few years ago, I said to her, like, hey, Mom, have you ever had any unusual experiences? And she got really quiet. She hated talking about this stuff. And she says, yeah, one time I was pulling in the driveway and I saw a UFO over the neighbor's house. And I'm like, and you didn't mention it, right? What? So, yeah, she didn't really love talking about that because, you got to think about every movie out there, every show with the aliens or the UFOs, they're always coming to kill us, attack us. It's always evil stuff. So there's a lot of fear out there, right?
Well, yeah, but at that time, we didn't have any of those movies because I remember the first movie. Now, this is just me, but the first movie I remember being like really scary and awful was called not Alien, but it was something on, but yeah, it was later. Because at the time, if you were a child, and that's when I was a child, pretty much, we had those movies hadn't come out yet, but there was a general belief that, there are no UFOs, there are no aliens. We're here, we're all by ourselves, and we're it in the whole universe, which I never thought made any sense at all.
I know.
So that's interesting, because, and for your mom to not be religious and be like, we're just not talking about this.
Yeah. It was more like implied. She just would get really quiet and then she'd keep herself busy. Like she didn't want to participate in the conversation. Yeah. So, yeah. So that was another big one. And I'm sure there were others, that I don't remember at this exact moment. But as I started awakening, I traveled the world, and literally in every country I've been in, I've seen ships. I've seen them in the air. I've seen them kind of, I've seen them in the daylight, but it's easier to see them at night, but I see them in the daylight. And of course, lenticular clouds are all over all the time, but I've gone all sorts of cool places where I've been able to see the ships. So like pretty much in every country, in every state, they're there. And of course, we're seeing them even more and more now. The mass consciousness is more open to it. So you're seeing more video out there of the ships.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So now when you're in Sedona and you're seeing things, do you ever see the actual ships? Like there was something you mentioned a couple of weeks ago. I think it was you that there was some kind of a major sighting here that even people who never saw were talking about. Yeah. What was that? Did you see that one, or did you just hear about it?
That particular one was a major ship. Okay, so I'm on this app called nextdoor.com.
Oh yeah.
I hate it. I hate it. But
the worst.
Yeah, but there was a person, they were like, oh, we think that was Starlink, and we think that was a line of helicopters, and we think that it, and I saw another one like yesterday, a video from somewhere, but it's just like giant black with, lights around the rim, in what would you call it, symmetrical order or whatever. So I think you and I had talked or whatever. There was that night that ship appeared, that big one. There was something you and I had talked about. There was something going on, and I was like, maybe you did your video with
I
Smarty.
did a video with Smarty.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I had put a comment in like, dude, there was a major ship, you know. So I live in a beautiful little neighborhood, you know, kind of in the country, like on a hill. And I walk a lot, like in the neighborhood. And at night, or even during the day, I'll go up kind of to the top of the hill and around. I can see the ships and or lenticular clouds all the time. And I can see angels in the sky. I can see all sorts of stuff up here. Like, not that you can't see it in other states or other areas, but because the weather is so darn nice, you're outside longer and
it's dark here.
Yeah.
It's really dark. We don't have a lot of street lights. It's great.
At night, it is dark, and you have no idea what that means until you've been here. But I have a friend, she said, hey, go out. There's a ship over the airport. So I walked down at night to the end of my driveway, which is a scary prospect because it's so dark. So I have my phone as my little flashlight, and, you know, because it's, you know, there are predators out here, but it's dark. So I go out and I looked and I'm like, wow, that's a big ship. So I took a video, and, you know, honestly, it's not the best quality, but it shows the energy moving. When you expand the video, you can see the energy moving. I've seen that during the daylight hours here as well. Yeah. So
well, I wanted to just throw in one thing for you.
Yeah.
So a year ago, on May 27th, it was my birthday, and my daughter and I saw, and I kid you not, hundreds of UFOs, and they were moving like this, just right across the sky, just like that. And they literally all disappeared at the same time, like boom. And everybody said the same thing to us. Oh yeah, that was Starlink. And we're like, no, no, it's not Starlink. And it happened again the next night.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and what was interesting is that like nobody else saw it. My daughter did catch it on her video, on her phone, but of course it's hard to get that little tiny detail on a phone, but she got it enough that you could see it. But I just had to throw that in because that just seems to be the answer to everything now. Oh, it's Starlink. And it's like, no, it's not Starlink.
And I know there was a guy on this Nextdoor.com that put out a UFO picture that he had taken, and he was bashed. Like, those are mean, they're mean people on that system.
They are mean.
Yeah, they bashed him. So yesterday morning, I'm driving home from yoga, bright blue sky. I stop at a stoplight and I look up, I'm like, oh my God. Now I'm in traffic and I, you know, couldn't whip my phone out. I saw six of them in broad daylight as I'm driving through town.
Wow.
Right. So you just have to look up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they are there. You're going to see more and more evidence of it. And it's so exciting to me.
It is exciting.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to do was give some tips for people about awakening. And so, like, I did not have any crisis. I didn't have an event that caused me to awaken. I just had like gentle coincidences and synchronicities and inspiration. And a lot of times I don't even think I knew it was inspiration. It just happened and I did it. And then now I'm more aware of it. I'm more in tune. So when somebody says, you know, start this blog website, okay, but I'm having fun doing it. So I wrote down about 7 tips that I would recommend to people.
Okay.
So like people that are watching this are already on their way, right? And it is my opinion that we're never done. Okay, we're always in process. There's always more to know. There's always more to do. But
which is good. Otherwise, we'd get so bored, wouldn't we?
That would be boring, wouldn't it? I guess. So what my first tip is to have an open mind. Okay, like there are things out there that we are not taught. Okay, whether on purpose or not, but have an open mind. So if somebody says something unusual to you, maybe ask a question, ask for a resource, like research it, look it up for yourself, prove it to yourself. So I know that when somebody says something to me that I haven't heard before, I'm like, oh no, in my head, that could never happen, right? No. But I mull it over and then I'm like, okay. And then I start looking into it, or another example of that thing will happen. And then I'm like, whoa. And then another piece of information will come in. And then I'm like, whoa, this is the truth. And I just didn't know it. All right. So have an open mind. All right.
I'll throw in one thing about
Yes.
that, the open mind.
Yeah.
So when I went into my first New Age bookstore, and I had never been there. It was like I was probably my early 30s, and everything was so out there. I didn't know anything about astrology, numerology, walk-ins, things like that. And so at first I was like logically going, well, no, and it couldn't be this and that. And then I went, well, how do you know that, right? How do you know that for sure?
Yeah.
And so the thing I used to tell myself, which is a great thing for having an open mind, is just say to yourself, this is a possibility, and then drop it.
Yeah.
And then drop it. And what I found was that by just doing that, I would find that information would come in from people that were talking about, let's say, walk-ins, which was way out there. I'd never heard of that before. But people that I really thought were excellent speakers and writers. And so I'd throw it in about open mind, because somebody's wanting to have an open mind and then having a little tool, sometimes a little helpful. Yeah.
Well, I agree with that because, like dogs and cats, we know they have a wider spectrum of they can sense sounds and see things that we can't see. All right. So we're like seeing here. Well, they're seeing out here. So who's to say that stuff isn't out there? Right. And I don't really even understand why all of this is suppressed. Like, really, what is the agenda behind all the suppression? That's a whole different conversation.
I was going to say, that's a long talk right there.
Yeah, we'll do that another time. And then the second thing is, like, for a challenge. Okay, so let's say you're inspired to do something, but you're afraid. Like, it's a challenge. You're going to learn more. You cannot grow without challenge. All right. If we didn't have challenge, we'd be sitting on the couch all day, like eating and watching TV. I don't know what we'd be doing. Without challenge, there is not growth. Okay. So sometimes things are going to be hard or a learning experience. But when you get through them and you go through life a little bit longer, you'll look back and say, ooh, that was perfect. And it was perfectly organized. And it was perfect that I learned this lesson this way. You're always going to have that, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm like, I wish I had done it earlier, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right. Third tip, light physical movement. So a lot of people don't like to exercise, okay, at all. But your body is really your antenna, okay, for truth, for inspiration, for spirit connection, whatever. So that's why yoga is so beautiful. But you don't have to do yoga. You can walk, you can swim, you can do Tai Chi. Doesn't matter. But if you like do light movement that opens up your body, slash your chakras to getting more information and more inspiration. Plus you feel better. All right. So you don't have to run a marathon. Just do something little every day. All right. 4, quiet time for reflection. All right. This is a big one in today's society. So do you have to meditate like the gurus? Do you have to sit there for 8 hours in silence? No. It is really helpful if you could spend even 5 minutes a day just sitting quietly in a pile on your couch, especially outside, to tune into yourself. All right. And I think the biggest problem with our society, or one of the, we could go on about that too, is we're so busy with technology and all the stuff we've got to do and all the things we have to handle. We don't think about ourselves or spirit, right? We don't have those inspirations come through. They can't come through when we're distracted, right? Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay. Can I throw in one more thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So another really fun way that I love to meditate is I'm a lie down meditator. Mm-hmm. And so I actually love meditating as I'm falling asleep. so that if I have any trouble falling asleep, I just go into meditative, I just start to meditate, and it's like so relaxing. And the other time I love to meditate is in the middle of the night, because I don't know about you, but a lot of people wake up in the middle of the night. I certainly do.
Yeah.
And I used to be in resistance to that. And then I thought, wait a minute, this is a perfect time to just meditate.
Yeah.
So it's another great time, no effort. You can meditate in the middle of the night when you wake up. So try to throw that in.
So even if we didn't do, we'll call it meditation, if you could just breathe deeply and sit still for, 5 minutes, your life will change. Right. And of course, if you can do it with purpose, like sometimes I would go into meditation with a question, or there's so many great examples I have there, but it really is a life changer. So just becoming still and focus inward, it's big. All right. Going into nature is another tip. All right. So most of us are, around computers and electronics all day, and we're doing whatever we're doing, rushing around. Just being in nature resets your energetic field. Right?
Yeah.
There's so many benefits from it. And again, if you can be quiet in nature, that's even better. It's really so good for you, physically as well as emotionally, but like from the awakening, hearing, inspiration standpoint. All right.
And if you haven't done any tree hugging, the way you hug a tree is you stand with your spine up against the tree, wrap your arms around the back of the tree, and you could be standing or sitting. And I'll tell you what, if you're at all sensitive to energy, you will feel that energy coming up and down your spine. It's also a really easy way to meditate, because you'll get real focused on a completely different energy and not your mind going,
100% true. And I have some blogs about hugging trees, believe it or not. So
nice.
Basically you'll go up to the right tree and you can feel your chakras all like bing, 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 all align again. And it can take away those negative, heavy feelings and the worry you have. And then you're like, wow, I feel great in a very short amount of time, because trees transmute that energy.
Yeah. Can I tell you a quick, I know this is your interview, but can I tell you? Okay. This is my coolest tree hugging story. Yeah, I was in Utah, up in the Manti La Salle Mountains, and I was there for like 21 days. And every day I got hiking, and people had carved their names into the trees, which sounds really cute if it's like, a little house on the prairie, but it was on every tree. And this one day I just walked up to this tree, I put my arms around it, and because I know that trees all communicate with each other. And I said, I gave it this love, and I said, just want you to all know I'm sorry that this has been done to you, kind of a thing. And the tree started talking to me, and the tree said, you recognize that these scars were put there by someone else. Realize this about your brothers and sisters as well. And I was like,
oh my God. I just got a blast of chills. That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
I have some tree stories too, and I have written them in the blogs. And one time a tree would not talk to me. That was the big time. And so my daughter can easily talk with a tree or a crystal or whatever. I have, for me, it's a lot longer. So I went back, I made some calls. I marched her right over to the tree with me. But what ended up is we brought the tree some shells and crystals and put it in the bark and around the roots. And then the tree said, thank you. And it said, I've been so angry because of, the construction and the way all the nature is being destroyed. And the tree said, the animals aren't even coming out to me anymore. And I feel so lonely. And, it was a beautiful tree. So it basically gave me this long message. So I visited that particular one 2 or 3 more times. And what I had to do is, it was in this giant mansion, like this estate's front yard. And I could see it from my window, and it was posted. And like, I'm not a vandal or anything, but I think the estate was empty. Mm-hmm. So I shielded myself, and it was about 30 or so feet under the property. And I would lean against the tree. And I did that a few times. And I said, I'd come back, and do that a few times. But yeah, it was a great, that's the summary version of the story, but amazing. amazing.
Yeah.
And
That's so cool that you have that ability to tune in and know what tree is drawing you. And
I knew that tree wasn't talking to me and I wasn't getting it. So like, that's why I brought my daughter right out. I was like, I'm not having it. I need to work up this puzzle. So yeah.
oh,
All right. So I can tell stories all day long, just about, but I have about maybe 4 tree blogs and I don't think they're out on the site yet, but they will be. It's kind of a matter of time, you know?
yeah.
All right. So tip number 6 is do what you love. So do things that you like to do, hobbies, jobs, whatever it is. When you do things that you love, you have a high light vibration, right?
Mhm.
And that attracts more good things, right?
Absolutely.
So when we're just working at a job we don't love or, bebopping around life, we feel heavy. We don't feel like it's not fun. So when it's fun, we have that light vibration and that just brings more and more and more fun and good things into our lives.
It's so true.
Totally true. And then the last thing is your environment matters. Okay, so it's not just the physical environment of your house, your work, your car. It's the friends, it's the information you take in, it's the food that you eat, it's the music that you listen to. That matters. So when your house is a mess and you got too much stuff in it, and you're eating fast food and you're rushing around and you've got negative friends, you've got a low vibration going on. And you have to break away from that to raise your vibration. All right. So we know from the law of attraction that the higher your vibration is, the faster you're going to attract the things you want into your life, right? You can't do it from that little space. Yeah.
So I'm just going to throw in this thought. So people hear this a lot, and maybe for the people that are going to watch this, it won't matter. But when you say a higher vibration, what is it that you're actually feeling? What, like if I think high vibration, I know I'm feeling joyful, I'm feeling grateful, and I just hang out there all the time, right? I just do because I practice it for a long time. But what exactly do you mean when you talk about being high vibration? What does that feel like?
It's light, it's fun, it's happy. Now, am I walking around skipping all the time? No. I got to do my stuff or all that, but I do it with a smile on my face. Mm-hmm. Like when I walk into places, I'm pretty happy to be there. I'm talking with fun people. I'm doing what I like. I'm there because I want to be, not because I have to be, right? And I'm happy. It's light. When you're not happy, it feels heavy. You feel sad, angry, fearful, jealous, all the negative lower vibrations. So when you're higher, you attract friends that support you. You feel happier about that. It just leads to more and more and more fun things in your life.
Well, and I'll throw in one more thing about that. You can fake it till you make it, because when I was in my early 20s, I lived in New York City and I was working as a waitress. And this manager came up to me after I'd been there for 6 months. And he goes, "Are you in therapy?" And I'm like, "No." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because you're happy all the time."
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's odd. And now here's the thing. I wasn't always happy, but I knew if I was going to make good tips, I had to be happy. So I walk into work, and even if I was tired or in a bad mood, I would pretend to be happy for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then it would take over and I would just be happy the rest of the day. So if you're working on happy, fake it.
Yeah. So like if I walk into the gym in the morning, I have a smile on my face. Now, am I putting it there on purpose? No. I like the atmosphere. I like the people. I like busting on people. I'm having fun. And so my smile puts smiles on their face. They know me. We chit chat a little bit. It's fun. Okay. And I hope that I'm lifting them up a little bit.
Yep. And I know you do. It was so much the first time I met you, I'm like, oh, we're going to have fun now.
Yes, we are. And you know what? I'm on pandemic vacation for a while until I'm not. And I am having fun at it. So I'm trying to enjoy my life. Like life is short. you have to make the most of it. Does that mean making billions of dollars and sitting in a cube and blah, blah, blah? No, it means finding the job you love, finding the people you love to be around, finding where you want to live and living there, right? All that kind of stuff. It's not easy, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's an adventure.
Yes.
Yeah.
What else do you have on your list?
I think that was it. Like, I just threw that together. I mean, I'm sure I could go on forever, but I think if people just started doing a little bit of this, they would feel better. And of course, look into smartiescorner.com and start wearing a charm. That's going to help make you feel better too. You know, I'm just joking, but not really.
No, but not really. But they really
I'm not
do.
really. Yeah. You don't need to spend a penny, but you know, the charm, like I say, is brainless. You just wear it. You don't have to think, right? And you're getting all sorts of healing and protective frequencies. And why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you?
Right.
There's
Right.
no reason.
And if you don't want to have an item, they do have free holograms.
Yeah.
And so they're like little round pictures that have this energy in them. And I really hope Smarty will tell us how to do that sometime. I want to make my own holograms. I get so many, you don't have to worry about it because he's got something for just about everything, and he comes up with new stuff all the time.
I'll put all those links down below for people that want to know more. And there's a lot of information out there. We did an awesome video together.
We did an introductory talk for beginners about Smarty stuff.
But those products help keep you higher vibration as well. And I got to say that my life is getting better, 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 better. And I am very grateful to have met Smarty. I'm grateful for the lessons I've had to learn the hard way, because sometimes I am rather stubborn. Understatement, right? But I'm independent and stubborn, and I'm going to do it my way. But it is what it is, right?
Yeah. Well, so was there anything else you wanted to add before the end of our? Nope. Was this it?
I think we're good. You know, it's getting like a little long, but I would love to talk with you again, because there's so many great stories we could share.
Yes. So, well, thank you, Sue. It's been so much fun. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you for taking your time, and thank you all for watching this. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Bye.